called a Chaco connection. Did you ever watch on TV where they've had several specials on Chaco Canyon?
I don't think I
I
have.
haven't either.
Okay. Chaco, it would be, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's a huge facility that you might call it like Washington, D.C., which was the central place for what we call outliers. All of these places, if you've been to Mesa Verde or Chimney Rock here, is an outlier. Now, if you look over there, you'll see a swale in a light blue. That's Navajo Reservoir. That's toward Ignacio. And then you've got two mesas, probably one maybe 70 miles, and then 80 miles, a very dim one behind. And down below that is Chaco Canyon. Now, Chaco was founded after here, but it became like a metropolis. Some of the archaeologists say it was keeping up with the Joneses. Have you heard of that? It was just built bigger and bigger. And in turn, I want to explain to you why that's important. Chaco, when they first moved in, had water, but it became an area in a canyon that had no water, no game, and no timber. So they relied on all these outliers to provide them with what they needed. And Chimney Rock has all three of those. Now, they used to signal each other from the top of the hill up here, where by fire, and it would go to the mesas and then down into Chaco. So they were in connection. They were a trading civilization. Probably began, at least the Chacoans in Mesoamerica. Maybe with the Incas had some relationship with them. They knew the heavens, and they had specialists in architecture and various things. The rest of these outliers were of the same group of people but different clans, and they were not educated or of the same hierarchy as these in Chaco. So Chaco had some control over all of these outliers to provide them what they needed. Now, they also were traders, and they walked. They didn't have any beasts of burden, so they walked everywhere they went. And in turn, they went down to Mesoamerica. I'm sure some of them even went north up into Alaska. So basically, there are roads leading out of Chaco, just like the Roman roads that led out through points of the compass, which they used to travel on and to trade. And there are, in Chaco, they found turquoise and rare bird feathers and a lot of the things that would have come from, we say Mesoamerica, Central America area, including Mexico. So basically, seeing that overview, now we'll talk about this up on the hill, study some of these other things that you see on the placards. But up here, if you look up there, let's go over here where we can see. Because the Chacoans either built or had these people build for them a structure like they have in Chaco Canyon. Now as you go down, you will see a placard that shows what it looked like when it was first excavated in about 1921. Look at the way the stones are on that building. You'll see a wall. Totally different than what you see on the hill. This is called the Ridge House. And basically, if you look at, these have been restructured and rebuilt, mostly by Navajos. But basically, it's all random stone. Notice there's nothing, they just laced one stone after another. They had, that was their knowledge and their capability. This structure up on the hill is definitely different. It has chinking and rocks which are shaped. And the reason this was done is to save water. They didn't have water in Chaco, so they had to do that. So when they build up here on the hill, rather than carry water up there, although they think they built in the winter up there so they could catch snow. And so basically, it's definitely Chacoan. Now, the question, why would the Chacoans build this facility up on top of this hill? Well, first, let's talk about when they built it, why that was important. Have you ever heard of major lunar standstills?
Mm-hmm.
Have you? You're one of the first ones that I know that did. I was a navigator in the Navy when they do celestial navigation, and they no longer do that because of satellites. And basically I've never heard of it. Now, these people had become either from gaining from Mesoamerica or coming up with it themselves, had gained a knowledge on the heavens far beyond what Europe had at the time. These people moved up here, this is the common people here, in about 925 AD. But about 1500 BC is when they came to gain maize or corn. And that changed their society. They were originally hunter-gatherers, traveling the rivers, so they were moving south along the rivers, hunting and gathering like our Plains Indians. And in turn, when they had the knowledge of corn, they then began to grow crops, agricultural type of society. They planted the corn with beans and squash, and then they began to stay in certain places and not move. Now, so these people that lived up here in about 925, when they came up here, AD, they believe they came up here because of the frost in the lower area below. There's less frost when you're higher, and therefore they came up here and were able to extend the growing season. No frost. It takes 80 days to grow corn to its fruition, because you Kansas folks know all about corn, so I will tell you about that. But basically, or Oklahoma too, I'm sure. So anyhow, they became agricultural. Now they had wild game here. They had elk and deer and bear and all sorts of game that they ate, along with other types of items. But they became an agrarian society. So that's the reason that they moved up here. But the Chacoans saw something else. And so they built this facility called a great house up there on the hill during a major lunar standstill in 1073, the first structure. And it was aligned with the summer solstice, the north wall of the first structure. And they know that now through what's called archaeoastronomy. So they lined up this up there. In other words, very important to them. Then, roughly 18.6 years later, which is what it takes the moon to go as far north and then to the south and return, every 18.6, so the moon does two things that the sun doesn't do. One, it goes further north, and it goes further south. That's to our vantage point. And in turn, it stands still at each end for 3 years. Doesn't seem to move because of its orbit. So basically, they, from their vantage point, would have seen the moon rise, particularly at the winter solstice, several times during those spires. They knew that. And whether it was the priests of the Chacoan culture or what it was, but it gave them something unique and special, which gave them the control and the power over all of these needs that they had for their community. This is a huge, huge place. So basically, they could say, when through the use of the sun as well, they formed a calendar, and they were able to tell when to plant, when to harvest. They were able to tell by the moon. They could say in a short period of time, the moon is going to stand still. Or they would say there's going to be a lunar eclipse and predict various solar events as well as the moon. So basically, they could predict things which the common people didn't know, which gave them that control that they needed to supply them and to be in control. So that's why this place is important, because they built it as like an observatory up on the top of a hill, and they built another one over on a mesa. So they were studying all of this, and then the people from Chaco would come to this facility and it was like a motel. It was not used by the common people. There's a place going up the trail that is called a guardhouse, which kept the common people having access or egress, so that basically they could go up only so far, where the Chacoans would use the facility again for observances. So that's what you're going to miss up there, is this structure. 35 rooms and 2 small kivas. They built the first edition in 1073. Then roughly 18, 19 years later, during another major lunar standstill, they put another addition on, and they lined that southern wall, they believe, up with the Crab Nebulous. Now that's a very interesting thing. The Crab Nebulous was an explosion of a star in 1054. They didn't build this till 1093. How would they know to line that up? Well, just 2 years ago, we had our 3rd dig here. We've had 3 digs. One in 2009, which was the last one. One in 19, what was the second one? 19, well, the first one was 1920, and the third one was
1980 something,
no, anyway, and all of them funded by the University of Colorado. That's where the money came for the archaeology. So basically it had 3 digs, and the latest dig, which was done by a man by the name of Lexon, was done roughly 2 years ago, in which they discovered another structure under this that was built about 1015, prior to the Crab Nebulous. And therefore they must have marked where that bearing was and built the second facility and lined it up.
How did they know about the Crab Nebula, though?
Well, they watched it in the sky. It exploded. It was a star that exploded.
And they
to
could
create
see that with their naked eye?
Naked eye. For 3 years, you could see it during the daytime.
Wow.
With your naked eye. Several years in the sky during nighttime. So they had this knowledge, and I think that's what this place is so important. And one of the reasons it became a national monument is I've had archaeoastronomers and others say this is one of the most important finds and places in the world, next to Stonehenge in England. Because remember, they lined all those stones up a certain way. This is what these people did too, and they had that knowledge. So as you go down along the trail, I wanted you to have that background, that it's not just archaeology where you'll see these placards that you can read, and the kids will get something out of that, I'm sure, but you'll get an understanding that this is a far deeper importance here at Chimney Rock, because the moon would have risen between those spires.
Well, that's what we were talking about. Wonder why they were built just like that.
They weren't built. They're natural.
Okay.
They're natural. These are hundred thousands of years old. In fact, roughly 30 million years ago, this is all underwater.
Okay.
Yeah.